All right, y'all, what's going on? Welcome back to another Jab podcast. It's episode 135. I'm Combo Breaker 99.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Boxing P.
We're back with another episode with y'all. You know, it's been a busy past few weeks, just a lot going on over here. And, just hope a lot of y'all are staying safe out there. What about you, P? How you and the family been, man?
Yeah, man, just staying out the way for real, man. You know what I'm saying? Going out doing what we gotta do, but for the most part, just playing the crib. I ain't gotta wear a mask in the house, and I can just do me. So,
Right.
Playing the crib, going out when I had to.
Yeah, because even though this lockdown's kind of been lifted in some areas, it's still, to me, it's still on everybody else to kind of make the wise decision. Use some common sense, and it's kind of showing that a lot of people haven't been. I know over here I've still been following the same precaution for me. And like I said, it's just all down. It all comes just down to common sense. So I've been doing the same thing. But yeah, man, as far as like the combat sports world, everything's kind of been jumping back in. Boxing's been coming back. MMA, of course, has been coming back with some of the, top cards, but we've still been having a lot of positive tests, as far as the COVID-19, had like maybe 3 or 4 boxing matches closed, a few of them canceled because of the COVID-19. Same thing going on in the UFC. And, rest in peace to Khabib, his father, Abdullah Nurmagomedov. He passed away a few days ago from COVID-19. I don't know, man. It still seems like, even though you're taking the proper precautions, this stuff's still going to be happening. So to me, it still seems like I was telling somebody else the other day, it's going to kind of be like a new norm for us. We're just going to have to kind of expect this to happen, even if you want to put on an event without an audience. What do you think, P?
Like you said, man, with sports trying to move forward, some have moved forward, some haven't yet. It's just more and more positive tests coming up, and they have been taking, like you say, steps and different protocols to try to eliminate the positive tests. But I mean, at some point, it's just going, in my opinion, it's going to come to a point where people will say, is it worth it? Because, the latest UFC, the main event, them having to pull a guy because he tested positive and then have this short window to replace it. How many times can you do that, Ant? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's just a lot of uncertainty, in my opinion. We just really have to see. I mean, the no crowd thing, it worked for MMA. It's working for some boxing matches, but the bigger boxing matches, I don't know. That'll be different. The heavyweight crown with no crowd, that's gonna be interesting, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, man, it's just a lot of uncertainty, man. I mean, you would think that we would have been getting more positive tests in the beginning, but before we had all these things in place, we got all these things in place, and we still, getting positive tests. So to me, that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to what you were saying too, as far as like, there's going to come a point when it kind of gets old. Some people kind of get tired of that. You think like the fighters are going to come to a point when they kind of say this might not be worth it, besides like the promoters?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was kind of saying from the business standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, even the fighters. I mean, you want me to fight a top level fighter on a week's notice, I got to be compensated for that. And if guys are already complaining about money, I mean, you offer me a fight on a week's notice and I'm a top 10 fighter, I could see that guy wanting to get paid for that. You know what I mean? It's not my fault. It's a short notice fighter, like the Conor McGregor thing when he was supposed to step in for Khabib and Ferguson if somebody pulled out, and then he kind of backpedaled on that and said he's not a replacement fighter. And I kind of understand what he's saying to that extent. You know what I mean? You Conor McGregor, you're a brand. You're not really just waiting on the sidelines to hop in a fight. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because specifically him, because he's an anomaly. Any fighter can't do that, but somebody of that magnitude. So I mean, like right now they saying, you know, Jorge is stepping in for Gilbert this weekend. I'm happy about that, Ant, but you know, Jorge was one of the guys that was complaining about money. Now I'm wondering, what type of money are you taking on a championship fight? Really, 2 belts on the line.
Yeah.
The MF and the welterweight belt. You know what I'm saying, on the line. Like, what type of money is he getting to take this on a week's notice, Ant? You know what I'm saying? A guy who was already complaining.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because when the fight was first being discussed, he was already complaining about the money. But now they're talking about the fight taking place now, and now tests are just going to go through. But what kind of turnaround where they could finally just understand and say they know Masvidal's worth? Because like you're saying, with Conor McGregor, there does come a point when you're not a fighter anymore, but you are like a brand. You got to protect that. Mm-hmm. You know, you have more to stand on and you have more to lose whenever you get to a certain part of your career. And I think at Masvidal, he's kind of understanding that. But like you said, with this virus here, the COVID-19, you gotta say, what can he really offer me to make it worth my while to take that place? You know?
That's what I'm saying, man. You know what I mean? Because the stakes are higher now, man. It's not just me fighting and risking my life. It's me, the COVID-19, being away from my family, maybe an extra amount of time now. It's a little different now, you know, a little more rigorous for the fighters. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. I mean, all this stuff, it might not never happen, but I'm just saying, I mean, when I'm looking at what's going on, I mean, guys pulling out and, you know, they want to save cards. The guys pulling out, not because of their fault. They pulling out because this is the right thing to do. They have to. And then people scrambling to put these cards, you know, together. Mm-hmm. Some of them, they don't ever replace them. But, you know, some of them, they are trying to piece them together. So it's just a lot of work. And, you know, I don't know how much money, like, the promotions are making right now for all this extra work they got to go through.
Hey,
you feel what I'm saying?
That's what I'm just trying to figure out now, because I was just looking before we started the show too. I was just looking at like the UFC schedule, and you know how many like cards we see canceled? It's almost like 40 different matches are canceled over the past between March to now.
Wow.
And
I didn't even realize it was that many.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you include boxing, you know, that's a couple, almost 50, 60, so, or more. That's the ones you don't even know about. But like you said, if you're thinking about it, they're going to be taking some big financial loss, but it's going to be hard to accept it as a norm, because you think when you have regular fight nights before this, sometimes somebody would get pulled off a card because of an injury or food poisoning, or somebody gets popped. But that's like every now and then. But, right, you know, now it's almost like every single card every week, like boxing or MMA, is going to have to expect a COVID case. Because if it ain't the fighter, they say that you get pulled if anybody in your corner gets it, you know? Or right, say if a family member gets it and you've been around them, then that's it.
That's what I say, dude. It's super complicated right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if the money, that's why a lot of guys prize fight, because it was good money, you know what I'm saying? But mm-hmm. if I can go into real estate or something else and the money is almost the same, I might have to do that, because it's just not making sense at this moment in time. I mean, like I say, and I hope that's not the case, but, you know, that's just like kind of common sense to me. You know what I mean? You can't How long can it go on like this? And even for the fans, and I mean, how much are we going to deal with just being jerked around? And even though it's nobody's fault, but just, I mean, we got fights in our mind, and boom, week before it's a new fight. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes we satisfied, but it's hard to even be a fan in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's almost like they trying to promise you something, but they know that promise ain't guaranteed. You know, like even with Dana's saying, I promise I'm going to give y'all fights, but is it always going to come out the way you feel it is just because you doing what you feel is best? You know, even going to this Fight Island. See, you went to the Fight Island, but now look, your main event got canceled. You know, that only shows what you can do. You can only do so much. And
I know, I mean, he balled already, but if he wasn't, I know he'll be losing his head because, I mean, he taking hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, he's
like that is.
Yeah, the nose hair and the ears, everything gonna fall out through this type of stress, man.
You know he don't deal with stuff well, so I know this stuff is just killing him. You know, he keep getting close to it, and then stuff happening. But that's where we at in the world right now, man. It's not his fault. It's nobody's fault. We got to get this thing under control, and then we can move ahead. It's not under control right now.
Well, let me ask you this too. As far as like saying this is like the new norm, where we just continue to keep moving on, but have to cancel a card every now and then, because like even just asking some of these other fighters online, you know, I've talked to, and they're always ready to get back in there, you know, COVID or not, they're ready to even train because they're fighters. But what if the majority finally speaks and say we just got to shut it down? Then it is like you said that they do have to kind of fall back on something, right? You know, they have to get ready to say that, because like I said, I respect to all fighters if you want to make that your career, but you got to understand, like, even if it wasn't a COVID, some type of injury could you cut your career short, where you still have to, you know, be prepared for that, right?
Right. I mean, and the chances of something like that happening are very big, ain't you know what I mean? Of them shutting stuff down and you guys not being able to make money the normal way. I mean, which it happened to what? Millions of people in America. They were laid off.
Yeah.
You know? They were laid off. So it's a reality, and for some fighters, it's probably going to be an out. Like I say, some guys already had their ducks in a row and, you know, planning for this, but, you know, it very well could get shut down. And like we said, we commend them willing to go out there and entertain us, but still at the end of the day, I don't want you risking your life no more than you already risking it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To entertain me and then putting others in harm's way. You know what I mean? So it's just a very complicated time, man. In my opinion, nobody got a right answer. Nobody answers really wrong, but the facts are that the stuff is spreading throughout all the sports. Basketball, football, baseball. It's not just combat sports, you know, but it's spreading. I mean, right here in North Carolina, this is a hot spot right now. I couldn't go home to Baltimore because Maryland is not letting people in, you know, from down here because it's a hot spot. I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying that's how serious, you know, people are taking this thing.
Yeah, South Carolina right now is like the number 3 ranked state as far as one of the highest in cases as of past week now. You know that?
No, I didn't know that, you know.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's to a point where you kind of got to still wonder about, you know, it's still going to be a big question mark over everything. But, like, as far as some of the boxing matches going, like, let's just talk a little bit about boxing. Like, when they come back, I know you were saying, like, there's still some major events where they need the crowd, but do you think it's still possible to make some significant fights that could still mean something?
I mean, this the thing, man. If the fighters are 100% down and they willing to do it without a crowd, I'm be willing to watch it without a crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to me, that's more like the $1 million questions. Can we get top 10 fighters up to come fight without a crowd, you know what I mean? If we can get these guys up the same way they get up for a crowd, I'll watch it. You know, I still prefer to see a crowd, but I'll watch it. I mean, it still should be high level, you know, boxing and very entertaining. But, you know, I'll be curious can we do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Looking at some of the ESPN fights that's been coming on, it's kind of hard to say because the match, the competition, the level in like a big fight. So it's kind of hard for me to say if it's the audience that's not getting me hype or not, because when I look at some of the UFC matches that's been going on, you know, like over the past few weeks, some of these fights, you almost kind of forget the crowd is there because they still throwing down. But I was like, some of the UFC fights, some of the boxing matches that's been happening, it's like you can't take it. You really can't just focus in on the fight. You still are kind of like looking around because of the fight, you know, so you are kind of noticing there's no audience. But I feel like if it was still a decent match, you wouldn't care about the audience in a you know, after a while. But yeah, like you were saying earlier too, like something like, you know, Anthony Joshua and Fury, you would definitely notice that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I mean, and that's just my opinion and how I feel. You know, like I said, if we get Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford in there, if you can get them to agree to fight without a crowd, I'm going to watch it, Ant. Will it be the same without a crowd? No, not to me. But I'd be curious, can we get them up to do that? I mean, these are guys who get big paydays and are boxing stars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, Terrence Crawford already kind of spoke on the lines that he want to wait till the crowd come back. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some other big guys follow suit. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, it's just not looking – it'd be different if we wasn't getting no cases, Ant, but the way this stuff is still happening, it's not looking good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't see top 10 guys taking this chance. And like I say, being away from your family, an extra extended amount of time, you know, outside of training camp because all the COVID-19 stuff. You know, some states, you got to be quarantined 2 weeks before you go back home. So just that's a lot that comes into play. We're fighting right now, man. And if you're not getting a few million, you might say, is it worth it after I pay Uncle Sam, the cornerman, my lawyer, my man, you know, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, real talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because when we're looking at some of the boxers compared to the UFC fighters, they seem a little bit more comfortable when it comes down to when they're going to return or not. Like, I haven't really seen too many of them voice about returning as fast. Yeah, I haven't seen too many of them talking about, you know, wanting to get right back in there like some of these UFC fighters. Like Gilbert Burns, he just fought like a month ago against Tyron Woodley, right? So it's like they seem to be more in a mind state. I don't know if it's just financial or just where they want to stay active. But to me, it's like a really rough time to want to stay active because, you know, you constantly going to be taking that test. And from what I've seen with these UFC fighters, that test ain't really something you want to, you know, really experience more than once, you know? Yeah.
I mean, a few people I know, they definitely said that it's not a comfortable thing. But yeah, and I mean, on the flip side of things, for guys who are not big stars, this could be a time for them to shine. You know what I mean? This could be a time for, since it's not a lot, to catch some eyes that they wouldn't normally catch and put on some good performances. So when things come back, you know what I'm saying? You know, they could be maybe at a different status or ranking or whatever you know you want to call it. So, you know, it is some guys who are pretty comfortable when they can say, yo, I'm going to sit this thing out for a year. I mean, John Jones saying I might sit out for 2-3 years. You know what I'm saying? That's a great feeling to be able to say something like that. Eh? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, yeah.
You know, but that's because I'm sure John has other things working, and he made it a pretty penny fight, you know, as well. But I know he has other things working. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you have to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's just how I see it. And right now, it's very complicated doing this thing. I mean, the fighters that want to move forward, I get it. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of just like with businesses you've been seeing now. It's kind of just like kind of rolling with it and just hoping for the best. You know what I mean? Like everybody from barbershops out here to, you know, just stores, little mom and pop spots, you know, opening back up. There just comes a certain point when they say we just got to kind of do it because they're still looking at it in the financial, you know, in the financial way. And I think that's kind of where like the MMA fighters are.
But this is how I see it, Ant. It's like anything. If you put Band-Aids on it, it's only a temporary fix. You got to fix shit and then move forward. You know what I'm saying? So sit down right now and sacrifice right now to flourish in the future. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? With no interruptions. I don't want to keep starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting and stopping. That's what we're doing right now. You know what I'm saying? People again thinking they're educated enough to make these decisions about the world and about stuff that impacts millions of people. That, in my opinion, they not the smartest people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You know, they said it's time to open up. As soon as we opened up, you know, we get more cases. I mean, Donald Trump says we get more cases because we're testing more people. What type of sense do that make?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What type of sense do that make?
Yeah. So that means no more flu shots and nobody's going to get the flu, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, we just living in a crazy time right now, bro. You know, and like, even though we talking about entertainment, we still want people to have a good life, ain't you know what I'm saying? I mean, we still want our favorite fighters. We still want fighters in general to not be sick and home to their kids and doing the things they want to do. Yeah. You know, enjoying the fruits of their labor. So it's not bashing nobody or nothing like that. It's all about just everybody being safe and getting this thing figured out and then moving forward. You know, I mean, think how complicated it is, man. We got to wear masks. We starting, we stopping the kids out of school, sports. It's a lot going on right now, bro. These people do not know what they talk about, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Because stuff is a mess right now.
Yeah, I think it's like you said. You made a good point. What you said about like the Band-Aid, you know, looking for a quick fix is it's just kind of like people always just trying to cut corners on something, you know. When we were kids, you get sick, you go on bed rest until you're better. You know, you don't sleep 1 day or 2 days and go back to school, then let it, you know, start to let the sickness pick back up. You stay until you're ready, right? Like as parents, I used to teach kids discipline. Why is it all of a sudden a lot of the adults now are losing discipline? You know?
And the thing about it is that it's really just immaturity, dog. When I see grown people wanting to rebel and acting like a 12-year-old kid, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and that might be a whole nother
it's like
for real, whatever. But
man.
It's a lot of stuff going on in the world, man. But you know, like we was just saying. I mean, I'm like everybody else. I don't want to wear a mask. I want stuff to move forward too, but I ain't trying to catch that crap. I ain't trying to quarantine. I ain't trying to bring that home to my family. That's what I'm not trying to do. You feel me?
Right.
I do want to do all the other stuff, but that I'm not trying to do because, you know, we work in the hospital and I seen people who had it and it's gone and they still don't really feel good. They still not the same, or you know, it's just a lot of different scenarios with this thing, and I just don't really want no parts of it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to give it to nobody in my house or anybody that, you know, nobody needs to catch it. You know, so I'm just, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's because I do work in the hospital and it got me paranoid. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not over the top with it. I'm laid back, but I ain't no idiot. You feel me?
Yeah.
Idiot. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing crazy over the top stuff, but I'm very mindful of it. Even more with this second time, man. You know, At first, I wasn't really wearing the mask all the time. You know, I wear one 8 hours a day at the job, and when I came home, I wasn't really. But now, I'm a little more vigilant with that stuff because it's not getting better. It's got worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, that's where a lot of people get it wrong. Like, they think discipline is like some type of slavery. You know what I mean? Like the discipline
control, man.
Control.
You know?
Yeah. They think like it's trying to make everybody a robot, but nah, man, it's just like discipline is just a part of getting everything back to normal, you know, because like we were going back to what you were saying earlier, you got to think, man, like I'd rather go through maybe 5, 6 months, maybe a year, just chalk that up as a loss to get everything back down. But don't take 3 months off and then say everything is good and then not really be good, you know. Hey, just because your pockets ain't good don't mean, you know, you can't be good physically, you know, like
Exactly.
That's where you got to put the health before the wealth, man.
Exactly, because a lot of people were still good. They was losing money, but they were still good. You know, like I said, people complaining. I mean, it was people in homeless shelters. It was people with no home to go to. You know what I mean? All types of terrible situations, and you know, with no voice to complain. A homeless person not on social media. Oh, I'm, you know, complaining, getting likes and stuff like that, GoFundMe's or whatever. But
right.
You know, that's just the way I see it. And as much as I don't, I'm like the spoiled kid too. I want to go outside and play, and you know, I don't want to do what people tell me to do, but I get tired of starting and stopping. That's one of my pet peeves, and because that's your life can be like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You don't take control of it. So right now, they controlling us, starting us, stopping us, starting us, stopping us. So let's just all stop, get things squared away, send out some more stimulus checks. You know what I'm saying? And
yes,
let this thing get better, because what they doing now, to me, is just going to complicate it more, because there's people that's asymptomatic and there's people walking around with. It's just all types of stuff right now, because it's, you know, this state open, this state closed, this state, you know, it's too much going on.
Yeah, it's just way too much. That's why I say it just comes to a point where you just got to say everybody just got to be on the same page, you know, and that's
and hold up, man. And listen, we know this is a boxing show, not to turn it into a COVID-19 show, but you got to factor in stuff like this. And I seen online, they said it's teenagers. They said it was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Actually, Deontay Wilder is from. But these kids are actually having COVID-19 parties, putting in the pot of money to see who catches it first. So with stuff like that, Ant, we got a long way to go, my brother. We got a long way to go. So
about that,
if that's, I doubt if that's isolated to just Alabama with in the social media age. You know what I'm saying? These are teenagers doing this. Who knows how far it's going? But I'm just saying we got a lot of work to do if we think it's almost gone. When you got groups of teenagers out doing stuff like that, Ant.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just drop the mic on it right there. I'm gonna just drop the mic on it right there, bro. A little more to say.
Yeah, that was just a little too much. When I heard about that, I was just like, wow, yeah, we in a different state of mind with, you know, from what those people were. I was just like, man, like when you hear that stuff, when you hear that type of stuff, it's just like, man, I don't know if it ever will change. You know?
I mean, can you imagine that, Ant? So all those kids are going home to their families, who's around other people, who around other people, who around other people. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The type of people that they infected. But it's just craziness. So, you know, we got to do the smart thing. And the smart thing is to protect yourself. I mean, if you are around people, don't matter. You protecting yourself. You are protecting other people too. But the main person, you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't get it. You know what I mean? I would hate to just come to a point where I'm running out the house and, I forgot my mask, like it's your wallet or your keys, you know what I'm saying? But if that's what we got to do right now, I'm going to play my part, you know, because like I always said, I'd rather be safe than sorry. If come to find out next year they say, it was a big hoax, it wasn't this, I'll be like, y'all got me, but I don't care. I was still safe than sorry. That's
And
my
that's the
motto.
thing. Hey, people just should be glad right now it's a mask, and maybe the way they're acting now, they might turn it into just like a whole bubble suit one day. You know what I mean? Like people wouldn't want to be there. People don't want to be there getting up to work, having to put on a whole bubble suit just to go outside. So you know they need to not make it worse than it is. You know. But as far as it goes, like in combat sports, man, like I said, I think that it is going to be kind of a norm now where we're just going to have to kind of say it's going to keep going for the fighters the way it is, but you always have to expect that unexpected of a fight or your favorite fight, your fantasy fight that's coming up that's going to get canceled. You always got to keep that in mind. Like I said, it was here and there where it used to be maybe an injury or two, but it's almost like a one fight on every card is always going to be pulled now because there's always that chance of somebody getting that positive test, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, man,
yeah,
it's
we'll see what happens. That's it.
yeah. But yeah, man, as far as like, some of the things in boxing we talked about before, as far as just like, taking an L, we talked about that before on the show and, how important it is to kind of learn from taking a loss as it is, admiring and appreciating your win. Last month when Josh Greer, he came back to boxing and, he lost his fight coming back. He dropped a close decision. One of the things that, I just wanted to touch on that, I kind of appreciated was whenever they talked to him after the fight, his post-fight interview, he just was kind of going in on how he said he worked hard. Not There's nothing else he can say as far as, just that he has to go back to the drawing board and kind of work on things as a fighter. And he said, just like a win, he has to take the loss as, he has to hold the losses just as big as he would a win, and the guy interviewing him, I can't remember his name. He had asked, was it the different style matchup because his opponent changed? But he just said, hey, I have no excuses. I should have been prepared for it. For me, P, I just think that is something you want to hear from a fighter. You can't always go in there and make an excuse. Oh, it was the opponent changed. Oh, it wasn't because I didn't train or I wasn't ready. But he came in there, took full credit for whatever was going to happen. Same if it was a win, he took credit for the mistakes he made. How important is that for you? Like I said, we talked about before, to actually hear it, more recently from, a young fighter like Josh Greer.
I mean, definitely hearing it from like you said, a young fighter. It was surprising, for a young fighter to be humble in defeat like that. I mean, even though Joshua Greer is not a huge star yet, he still was a champion. He had a couple defenses, I think. So he was on his way. You know what I mean? And that night, he fell short and wound up losing his titles. And I think he did the right thing and approached that situation the right way, because we're so used to hearing these young people being very arrogant and just not being able to accept defeat well. But, the kid took it on the chin. To me, he gained more fans by being diplomatic. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, go back to the drawing board and do it all again. And like you said, and the key thing, he said he make no excuses. There's no excuses to make. It's one person going in the ring. You feel me? There's no excuses to make. I mean, if you switch opponents and I got to go in there and fight him, I don't care what nobody say. I might be watching film on him, man. Mm-hmm. If my coach say he don't want to watch that, might be. I got to go in there and fight him. I need to see how this dude body moves in the ring. So, everything he said was absolutely true, and more guys had to face the music and realize that. You know what I mean? It's not really no excuses to make, Ant. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Because until the bell ring, the fight don't start. You got all the way up to the bell ring to pull out of that fight. So it ain't no excuses to make. You know what I mean? People make them, of course, but it's not really no excuses to make. And to see a young man like Greer stand up and take that on the chin and be humble in defeat like that, it spoke volumes of his character. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely what we want to see. You know what I'm saying? We want to see in some of these young boxers. I mean, of course, we need the other thing too, man. For entertainment purposes, we need that. I won that fight. We need the Adrian Bronas of the world.
Oh yeah.
To, balance us out a little bit, but it's always a breath of fresh air to see a kid just be humble in the fight game, because it's a tough sport.
Mm-hmm. And two things that really caught my attention about what he said too is the fact that when he said no excuses, that says a lot. Like, we've seen fighters in the past when they lost, they would say, well, my opponent, he was better at this, but I had such and such going on at the time, or this part of me wasn't working right, or this wasn't the way it was supposed to be. That's all a part of you. That's all a part of you that go in there that night. Like, you go in there with a broken pinky. That's not an excuse. It's just another part of you, and you having to find another way to work around the broken pinky, or you suffering from a cold that night or whatever, it's still a part of you. So that shouldn't even be brought up as far as I could have won, but this and that didn't work right, so that should never be brought up to me. And I think that's why whenever they mention the opponent change, he just says, that's no excuse. You got to be prepared for everything. And I think that's what a fighter has to do and understand to be great. Because you see all the Hall of Fame fighters that we admire and love, they never go in with the actual game plan. They go in there knowing that anything can happen. You don't go in the ring expecting your opponent to always do this. Like you said, it's good to watch tape just to know what a fighter does. But even there comes a point when somebody like Andre Ward or Sugar Ray Leonard, they go in there to a point saying, expect the unexpected.
Absolutely.
That guy that you fought, that guy that fought this way once, he might not fight that way all the time. So you always got to be prepared. So I think Josh Greer kind of opened his mind to being able to say, I got to be able to open to whatever somebody brings, So he didn't even take that as an excuse. He just said, I wasn't ready for it.
Well, and I want to bring up just like another little funny side of that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely like for boxing fans. So, some of us have watched so much of a particular fighter that if we're watching a fighter, we know when something ain't right. You know what I'm saying? We know when something ain't right. So sometimes, after the fight is over, you might have a humble guy and he might say no excuses. We want to hear excuses because we know something wasn't right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not grounds to give us excuses, but I just wanted to play on that a little bit, depending on what type of fan you are and how deep you go. You know what I mean? But it is times that we seen something, we knew something wasn't right, from a look, from he wasn't throwing his punch no more, he wasn't moving his foot, he wasn't doing certain things no more. We knew something was going on. And when they don't say that, we feel let down a little bit because we know something was wrong. You know what I mean? So
right.
It definitely can. But see, that's different. That's when we're looking for an excuse. We talking about when you making excuses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a little different. You know what I'm saying? But, you can see that sometimes. You can watch a fight and see something might be wrong with a guy, because we watch the guy so much. We know what he does. You know what I mean? In certain situations and different scenarios. So it's part of the game, but
ain't that crazy though? It's almost like that's how humble that guy can be to say that that's not something I could use. It's just like
Exactly.
it's almost like a mistake. You know what I mean? Like maybe all in all, he shouldn't have taken the fight that night, but it's almost like saying that twisted ankle was just as much as a letdown as if I wasn't keeping my hands up. You know what I mean?
But it hurt Ant when you're a fan because you want him to be
Yeah.
like, yo, my ankle was messed up. We want him to use an excuse because
Yeah.
we wanted him to win so bad. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? We like, yo, say something about the leg. We know the leg was hurt.
Yeah.
Say something about that. Don't let them think that he was that much better than you.
Yeah, hey, it's just like even when fighters get older, when you know your favorite fighter, they don't have it anymore, and you always can say, "Man, you could just say it. Just say it. Look, he wasn't the same guy if he fought you 5 years ago." You know what I mean? But it's on that fighter though. They feel humble enough to say, "Nah, man, I took the fight. I wasn't what I was supposed to be. All along, we know that your legs ain't looking the same, or we know that you would have mopped that guy up 5 years ago, but it's like you just got to be humble in defeat sometime, man. You know?
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's such a brutal sport that after it's all over, I mean, you got to be humble, man. You know, because you just pretty much put it all out on the line. You know, I mean, after that is it's love again. You know.
I think what was it like? Only time excuses could ever come into play is like he was saying on Coming to America. Whenever Marciano beat Joe Louis, and he was like 70. You know what I mean? Saying something like that. Like that was the only time we could say something. You know.
Yeah.
When Marciano beat Joe Louis, he was way past his prime, you know. So, but yeah, I think that that's a good road for a young fighter, a good road for them to start to really say everything I do is always on me. You know, you can't always say, "Oh, I wasn't prepared," or you know, this should have been this way, and I would have been perfect that night. No, you know, you always gotta kind of take ownership, accountability for everything in there.
Right. I mean, and if Joshua Greer left that interview and cried like a baby, that's how you're supposed to do it. You ain't supposed to let us see you do that, and you know, let the audience or your fans see you make a bunch of excuses. You know, we know you're human. We know it hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why it's on camera and off camera. You know what I'm saying? You just wait to do certain things till you know you're off camera. You know what I mean? But it's always the right thing to do, you know what I mean? It just sends the right message to be humble. You know what I'm saying? And not make excuses and the reason people say don't make excuses is because you take away from the other guy's win. You know what I mean? And when you think about it like that, it makes a little more sense. You know what I mean? If you say, oh, my leg was broken or my foot was hurting, you make it seem like, well, if my foot was better, he wouldn't have did that. So it takes away from the other guy. So, you know, I understand why, you know, it's a couple reasons not to make excuses, you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
When there was one fight I was going to mention to you too, I was just thinking in my head about like when the excuse is just ridiculous sometimes, you know, whenever it's just to the point where it's like you see it and you're like, man, like, again, it goes back to actually watching the fight and you see what they're doing wrong, but sometimes the excuse is like way out of left field. You know what I mean? Like it's just a totally different thing. And you just like, now you know they're just being a sore loser.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, yeah, that was just something I just kind of wanted to go in a little bit because, like I said, learning from the loss and, you know, taking accountability, that's just important as winning, man. You know, that's just important as a W to actually move forward to where you want to be, you know, as a fighter. But real quick, 2P, before we do wrap this one up, ask you this question, P, that you posted. Like, what was your thoughts on it? Because I had my thoughts on it, but you used to ask, if a fighter tells his corner he doesn't want to fight anymore, should his corner force him to continue?
Real quick, because it was so many different opinions on that, and you know, I know Ariel Helwani caught a lot of flack you know, because he was saying, oh, you know, if a fighter says he's done, he's done. And, you know, a lot of fighters gave him flack because they said, dog, you never had a fight before in your life. You really don't even understand that realm of thinking, you know. In that particular situation, that to me, that dude didn't want to go on. Or when you said, I think they said he said it like 9 times.
Anthony Johnson or Anthony Smith.
No, not Anthony Smith. The latest fight where the guy didn't stop it. These were guys. I think it was his UFC debut.
Oh, his UFC debut.
It was his debut, and he was like 5-0, and he was fighting the guy, and he told his corner 9 times that he didn't want to go on any longer, and they, you know, kept encouraging the fighter, you know, to fight on or whatever.
Yeah.
But eventually the fight got stopped, but it was a lot of fuss about the situation because people were like, you know, I mean, who's right and who's wrong? You know what I mean? 'Cause some guy said that, yo, a fighter always want to quit. That's the job for the coach to motivate him and push him through. You know, they say most fighters want to quit. You know what I mean? But
yeah, but I think that once the fighters kind of give you that red alert, man, like where something ain't right and they know they can't go on, to me, I think it is up to the corner to stop it. Because, you know, the fighter's the fighter. The fighter's the one got to have that heart to stay in that mentality. Almost like when Deontay Wilder, he almost got mad at Mark Breland for throwing in the towel. It's about balance. You know what I mean? The fighter is always going to be set to fight, but it's the corner from the outside looking in that's got to say he's bleeding from the ear. You know what I mean? Or he's not taking punches like he usually does. You know, his legs are gone. You know that even whenever you're doing good, they're the ones on the outside telling you when you are doing good and when you're doing bad, or whenever you just need to stop altogether. You know, so.
And that's why I think it's like an isolated thing, because that's what the coach said about this particular fight. He said, yo, he wasn't taking damage. The fighter was thinking it was worse than it actually was, you know what I'm saying, being in the fight. So the coach was on the outside and was like, yo, it wasn't as bad as you was making it say. And like I said, I think it's like an isolated situation. This guy said 9 times. A guy tells you more than twice, I think you need to pull him, man. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, but
yeah,
I do understand it is a dynamic of a coach motivating a guy. I mean, you know, Mike Tyson had to be motivated. He was crying before fights. You know, it's a part of the coach to do that. You know, they said the coach knows the fighter the best after that training camp because he's been with him that whole time. So, you know, I do believe that's a deeper level of understanding, and it is some things that they may see that other people on the outside may not see, but it is obvious things. And like you say, if a fighter is just taking too much damage, now the Anthony Smith thing, that's a total different situation. I mean, he's getting teeth knocked out. That's totally different. This fight that I was kind of talking about, it wasn't really that bad. And it kind of was the opposite of the Anthony Smith, because this guy, he wanted out of the fight and they wouldn't stop it. You know, Anthony Smith didn't want out and they stopped it. So it was kind of, that's what I'm saying. You see both dynamics, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And these guys were looking at Anthony Smith like, yo, we got to protect this guy. And this coach was looking at him like, yo, this is your UFC debut. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's not as bad as you think it is. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, in my opinion, it's definitely, you know, situation by situation. You know what I mean? It's a very gray area, because one punch, it can be too late. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They're just trying to make that second decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Like, when it comes to the corner, like, there really is no one answer for that, like you say. Or like I was thinking, as far as, you know, just saying if the fighter doesn't want to fight anymore, should you force him to continue? It's because, like, I think each situation is going to be kind of different, because it could be physical, it could be mental, you know?
I mean, it could be that, and see, that's what they were saying. They say, yo, this is the same guy who quits every day in training. That's what he does. I'm there to put, you know what I mean? So a trainer would know that because they spend a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So that's what they were saying. A guy like Earl Houani, who never threw a punch, Ant, it's hard for him to understand that dynamic. If he hears those words, he's automatically going to push the button because that's what you do. But in combat, it ain't always like that, Ant. You know, and in the war, you know what I mean? Troops didn't want to fight, and the general made them go out there and do it. You know what I mean? So it is part of that combat thing. But of course, it's lines and pushing people too far. And I mean, this is a sport. This ain't a war. You feel me? This is entertainment. So it is a line of going too far, but it is a lot of different views of it too, though. You know what I mean?
And you know, that's what makes like the trainer fighter relationship special when you think about it, man. Because it's like every case is different. Like if the answer was yes across the board with that question, then like every trainer could just be the same for every fighter. You know what I mean? But no, it takes like a special person because, like what you said with this fighter, if he's always quitting, this trainer probably has the key to like that fire under him again, you know? Like he knows that. Cause like some people think you see somebody doing sprints and they're breathing hard that you need to quit already. No, that's their first few times, man. You need to give them that right incentive to push them because ain't nothing going to be easy when you're in the actual octagon, you know? So thinking about him, it's like, what is it that's making him want to quit? If it's not necessarily like he got some teeth knocked out, he got a broken shin, what's making him want to quit? Well, this corner guy, he knows the answer. That's why he's not going to stop it yet, because he knows it's supposed to be his one thing that I can trigger him and try to give him that chance. Because who knows? He quits now, then he's going to be mad at the trainer later. Like, why didn't you motivate?
Look, you took the words out of my mouth. The trainer said, one of the main reasons I didn't do it is because he was going to be mad if I did it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I said he wouldn't be able to live with that. He wouldn't be able to face that decision if I did that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's why I didn't let him quit. You know what I mean? So, like you say, man, you know, it's a lot of different dynamics to that. And you know, it's the physical and then it's the mental. Like I said, if the guy quits all the time in training, then you know this guy in a real fight, he might want to quit and don't need to quit. You know, he might just need some push. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just the way it is. It's no, like you said, yes or no across the board because every fighter needs something different. I mean, like I said, anytime Mike Tyson, like he said, I was crying and nervous before fights. I mean, Mike, what man thought Mike would be doing that? You know what I'm saying? Right. So, it just goes to show you that Cuss was one of those guys who got him past that hump, and Rooney and whoever the guys were around him in those early stages got him past those humps to go out there and fight.
And I'm glad you brought that up because just like looking at a lot of things like Cuss used to do as far as his training methods and how he was saying, you know, it was a lot of, you know, just so much mental in it. That just shows you how much work he put into Mike at the time. Because think about it, like your average guy, you see Mike crying backstage, you'd be like, should he be fighting? You might be like, oh, let's get this guy home, man. Let's get him dressed. Let's get him out of here. But all the while, that's just the makings of the animal that needs to come out, you know?
Exactly.
And I think because he understood that, like, the fear that he was showing backstage was something that needed to be let out in a certain way when he get in the ring, you know? Like I said, some people would probably be nervous to say, this guy's a cream puff, you know?
Right, of course. I mean, you crying, yo, you's a chump. Yo, you ain't no, you know what I mean? And that energy might have fed into Mike and made him turn into a chump. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Cuss built him up and said that, yo, you crying right now, they gonna be crying later. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I see it in you, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, that trainer and fighter dynamic is a real complicated thing, and you know, people on the outside probably can speculate, but I don't know how accurate that speculation is because everyone is different. You know, I mean, everyone. Look at Freddie and Manny. Freddie couldn't control Manny. Manny did what he wanted to do, but when it was time, Manny came around. You know what I'm saying? Came around. You know what I mean? So that pissed Freddie off. Freddie didn't like that, but Manny paid good money, and he knew he could get results out of Manny, and it always kind of worked out. So, I mean, that's the fight game for you, right?
Yeah, and then think the Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, that first fight when Angelo Dundee said what he said to him, you blowing it. That was the words that almost like the opposite. Because if some people heard that, they might have said, "Well, I'm blowing it. I ain't gonna do anything else,"
Right.
But he said something to him that triggered the opposite to make him say, "Well, if I'm blowing it, I got to fix that."
It's a job. That's a job of a trainer too, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you can't say you're blowing it to everybody. That might make them crumble and say, "I might as well quit."
If you tell somebody who looking for a way out that they blowing it and it's over, you know what I'm saying? But if you tell a champion, you blowing it, a champion, he want to take that belt home. He like being the champ. Then, you know what I'm saying? He might go to second gear.
Yeah.
So, it's all about knowing your fighters. And like I said, on the outside, looking in, I mean, people are going to have a lot of different, opinions. But I said, when you know all of the factors into this fight, it was his UFC debut. He was fighting a guy that was probably better than him, but not a guy who was way better than him. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't really getting totally dominated. It was only the second round, and he didn't want no more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Some people thought that he won the first round. Some people thought the other guy won the first round. So it was a close first round. But
and even what you said, like there was just so many factors to that. UFC debut, still undefeated. There's so many like icebreakers there. You need to break right there. That'll make you freeze up.
They can make you want to quit and to make your coach say, "Yo, you can't. Yo, you're not gonna be defeated. You're gonna ruin your debut." Now he done. You know what Dana? Dana ripped him a new one. Dana said, "Oh, yo, if you ready to quit, you ain't ready for this." You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
It was a lot of stuff, riding on that end, but it is what it is. But of course, if as far as physical harm, the trainer should always be willing to do the right thing and make that call. You know what I'm saying? But if you're on the outside and you're seeing different things, when you're in the fight, you don't know what's happening. That's why your guys got to go to the corner. Am I doing good? Am I doing? They don't know what they doing sometimes, eh?
Right.
You feel me?
Yeah, they're looking. They're performing, but it's you're the one looking in at them, and you're going to tell them like, you need to do this and you need to do that. So they're counting on you. But I just thought that was a good question, because when I read it, I felt one way, but then I was like, this ain't no really like a yes or no answer. And it's something that I think a lot of people, they can't get ready to get mad at an individual answer over. Like if somebody says, yeah, just throw in the towel, or say, yeah, it all kind of, or no, it kind of depends on that fighter at the time, what type of punishment they actually taking. Is it their own battle they fighting in their mind, or is it some physical punishment?
Exactly. What's the circumstances of it? You know what I mean? But what if a guy wants to quit in the 12th round, and 12th round he got 10 seconds to go? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, he might want to do that. A guy might want to do that if he been taking punishment and been in the fight. He tired, he hungry, he ready to go. He want to miss his girlfriend. He might say that.
Yeah.
Is that really what he need? You know what I mean? Because he gonna regret it more than the coach. Coach can go train another fighter. You the one that got a L on your record that's permanent.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things to factor in with that. You know what I'm saying? It was a controversial question, of course, because people going to go tooth and nail about both sides of it, but I think it's really an individual based type thing.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, it's almost like the fight game. And like even on that side, you'll actually have to be experienced in it to actually really understand what you would do in that situation. Like sometimes fans, when they watch the fight, they say, "Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that to beat that person." But when you actually in there, it's a different story.
Exactly. And even just the trainer, like I said, for Ariel to never have trained anybody in combat, and not just him, a lot of people who had that same perspective that he had, but they kind of went in on him kind of hard, and he probably didn't understand why. But it's like anything, and I mean, it's like a guy might get punched in the face and say, "Oh, ask the guy why did he hit him." I mean, a guy who been in a fight to get hit in the face in the street, he gonna hit a guy back. He ain't ask no questions. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, it's some things you're not gonna understand. Earlier was that guy that's gonna say, "Hey man, why'd you hit me?" The average joker it ain't gonna be no words. It's gonna be a punch thrown back. You know, so it's certain things just, you know, everybody, you know, depending on where you at and where you come from, you might not get. No disrespect to him. It was just one of them things because he was real passionate about it. You know, Ariel, voice cracking and, you know, he getting upset about it, taking it personal. People like, yo, you might not understand or might not look as bad. It might look worse than what you really seeing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if he ever lightened up on his stance, but they were right. They were right. You can't just go off that. You don't know that particular situation. Yeah, that fight, the guy obviously didn't want to go on anymore. But we can't just say anytime a guy says, "Yo, I'm done," that it's time to throw in the towel. You know what I mean? If you say that, we might not have no fights. You know what I'm saying? Because guys might say that all the time. Yeah. You know, and they say a lot of them do. You'd be surprised who's saying that. You know what I mean? And who not? Because just because a guy a good fighter don't mean he motivated, ain't. You know what I'm saying? Don't mean he got the most self-confidence. He, you know, I don't mean none of that.
It probably take a lot to get him going. You just don't know, you know? So I think that, you know, Ariel used to being behind the mic for so long and, you know, just being able to talk everything out. He don't understand, like, the fighter side of it. There's times when it just takes a split second type of thinking, you know what I mean? It takes that type of thinking, not that tight where you just have to draw it out. Because even like you said, like, what if every kid that missed a few passes that wanted to try football, he just said, okay, that ain't for me, I quit, you know, I'll go on. Or you say, oh, you missed a few passes, let's go home, you don't need to be playing. You know,
right. Or like you say, well, how many kids wanted to quit on their dad or their mother, and they said, no, you getting back out there tomorrow. You getting back out there tomorrow. How many times you think Venus and Serena or the Jacksons or LeBron or any of these greats wanted to quit? Yeah. And they got pushed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the problem, because now if you push somebody, it's abusive, or you bullying them, or it's doing this, it's doing that. And I grew up in the era where you got pushed. Most of the time it was to do the wrong thing, but we got pushed, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it is what it is, but, you know.
But yeah, that was, like I said, that was a good question to just kind of answer, because I thought that it was had some good points to it, different points to let people know that training an individual is just that. Every fighter is an individual, man. Nobody's ever going to be the same, or you don't ever treat the fighter with the same. You don't ever approach them the same. You know, you never approach these fighters the same. Everybody's their own person, you know. But yeah, man, that's a pretty good conversation today. As far as what's been kind of going on, anything you wanted to say before we wrap this up in closing, Pete?
No, not really, man. Just like I said, man, just there's a lot of uncertainty out here in the boxing world. I mean, I know they got some dates set up and some fights being promoted, but like I say, and I'm a believer when I see it, man. Not to be a hater or to be negative, but you know, the fights that I really want to see, you know, they're the top guys, and we still haven't really seen any of the top guys in boxing come back yet. So I'm just waiting to see what happens, man.
Yeah, same here, man. There's just been so much talk, even especially at 135 and 130. So many potential fights that could be made, but you know, some fighters in that division too, they don't want to fight without crowds. You know, some fighters are just waiting for the crowds to come back to make more money, or they feel like some fights aren't going to give them as much money without an audience. But if that's the case, and I mean, you probably might as well close out 2020, you know.
Yeah.
Might as well just close it out and say chalk it up as a loss, because you're not gonna get the fight you would make off a big crowd right now, because none of these fights gonna have any crowds right now. You know.
No, no, I agree, brother.
But yeah, before we bounce, P, just let everybody know where they can follow you at.
Y'all can catch me on IG at Loud Pack Boxing. Y'all can catch me on IG at p.barnhill as well. And also YouTube, Loud Pack Boxing. Y'all can catch me on there as well. I'm just getting it up and running, just a few little short videos on some stuff that's on my mind. So that's it, Ant.
All right. And you can follow me on Instagram, all boxing everything, and Combo Breaker 99. And you can subscribe on YouTube, Combo Breaker 99. I've been getting some new subscribers about, talk women's MMA, MMA and everything over there. And subscribe to us on the Jab Effect YouTube channel. We've been getting some new subscribers on Jab Effect channel too, man, on YouTube. So it's always a good thing too, man. And you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google.
Go ahead, Ant. Sorry.
And you can follow IG Jab Podcast 1. What were you gonna say, P?
No, I just wanted to real quick give a shout out to Eric Thompson. Just because he always checking out the show, man. That he'll chime in and jump right into an episode, and I got to figure out what he talking about, because you know what I'm saying. So shout out to him, man, for still staying tuned or whatever.
Yeah, shout out to Eric, man, boxing historian. And it's like you said, sometimes we get these combos and then we off doing whatever. Then he mentioned something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot we talked about that. Just because it's so. Sometimes we go on for like an hour, and after that, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot we talked. Okay, yeah, but yeah, shout out to Eric, yeah, man. But yeah, like always, man, we catch y'all on the next one. And I'm Combo Breaker 99.
Your boy P.
And we out y'all later.
Later.